You know that feeling when spring is finally in the air? For so many of us, that also means sneezing, itchy eyes, a runny nose. We usually just chalk it up to a nose problem, right? But what if that sneeze is just the very first domino to fall in a long chain reaction, one that travels all the way down to your lungs? And what if the air in our cities is actually giving that domino a little push? Let's get into the science behind this allergic domino effect.
You might be surprised at just how connected all three of these things really are. It's way more direct and dynamic than you'd think. So today, we're going to investigate this question and in the process, uncover this fascinating story of how our bodies react to the world around us, from a single grain of pollen all the way to the exhaust from a passing car. All right, first things first, we've got to kind of tear up the old textbook diagram of our airways. We tend to think of our respiratory system as a bunch of separate parts, each doing its own thing. But modern science is telling a very different and much more connected story. So, you know the old view, right? Super simple, nose up here, lungs down there. Two totally different systems with different jobs. But the new view? It's a total game changer. It's called the unified airway theory. And it basically says that from the tip of your nose all the way down to the deepest part of your lungs, it's all one continuous, seamless system. And here's the cool part. This isn't just some abstract idea. It's a physical reality. The lining of your nose, the mucosa, is literally made of the exact same stuff as the lining of your lungs. We're talking the same cells, same structures, the whole shebang. So it's not two separate streets. It's more like one long, continuous highway that starts in your nose and ends in your lungs. Okay, so keeping that unified highway in mind, let's define the real problem here. Allergies are a type of hypersensitivity. And what that means is it's not actually the pollen or the dust that's the enemy. It's your body's wildly exaggerated reaction to it. Your immune system sees this harmless little particle, thinks it's a major threat, and launches this massive inflammatory attack. And that inflammation, well, that's the key to everything that comes next. Right, so if it's all one big connected system, it makes sense that a problem upstairs, an allergic reaction in your nose, could cause some serious issues downstairs in your lungs. And the numbers, they totally back this up. Big time. Get this. Roughly 40% of people who deal with allergic rhinitis, that's just the fancy term for hay fever, also have asthma symptoms. 40%. That is not a coincidence. It's solid proof of that deep connection we're talking about, of the nose and lungs being in constant communication. But how? Well, researchers have pinpointed 4 main ways they talk to each other. First, there's just simple nasal dysfunction. Your nose gets blocked, so you have to breathe through your mouth, and that sends cold, unfiltered air straight to your lungs. Ouch. Second, inflammatory drainage. That lovely postnasal drip can literally carry irritants down into your lower airways. Third is the nasobronchial reflex. Think of it like a neurological tripwire that can make your airways clamp down almost instantly. But the one that is the most surprising, the one that turns a local sniffle into a body-wide event, is number 4, systemic circulation. Okay, so follow me on this domino effect. A single grain of pollen lands in your nose, your immune cells absolutely freak out and release these tiny signal proteins into your blood. These signals then travel all the way to your bone marrow and basically shout, "Red alert, we are under attack, send in the special forces." Your bone marrow responds by unleashing a flood of new inflammatory cells. And these cells travel through your blood and gather in your lungs, making them inflamed and super sensitive, even though your lungs never even saw that original grain of pollen. And look, don't just take my word for it. This is straight from a 2022 study. It confirms that a key signal, something called IL-5, gets absorbed from the nose into the blood and directly tells the bone marrow to start cranking out more of those inflammatory cells. So, a sneeze in your nose literally recruits an army that ends up marching right into your lungs. Now, this whole unified airway idea isn't just about common things like hay fever. It's actually at the very heart of some more severe and, frankly, kind of strange respiratory conditions. Let's take a look at what happens when this whole hypersensitivity thing gets dialed up to 11. It's called hypersensitivity pneumonitis, or HP for short. And while asthma affects the main bronchial tubes, HP is an inflammation that goes way deeper, right into those tiny, delicate air sacs at the very end of the line, the alveoli. And this happens from being exposed to very specific triggers, over and over again. And you won't believe some of the triggers for this stuff. I mean, farmer's lung from moldy hay, okay, that kind of makes sense. Bird fancier's lung from bird droppings, a little weird, but I get it. But hot tub lung? Or how about trombone player's lung? Seriously,
from mycobacteria growing inside the instrument. It all just goes to show it's the same principle. Breathe something in repeatedly, and your lungs can have a massive inflammatory response. So here's the crucial point. This is why it's so important to understand. While asthma is often manageable, chronic HP is a lot more serious. If you don't get away from the trigger, that constant inflammation can cause permanent scarring in the lungs. That's a condition called pulmonary fibrosis, and that's damage you can't undo. Okay, so we have our unified airway. We've got our hypersensitive immune system that's ready to overreact at a moment's notice. But there's a third character in this story, an accomplice that's lurking in the air of our cities, making everything exponentially worse. Yep, we're talking about air pollution. You've got all the usual suspects here, right? Particulate matter, nitrogen dioxide. But for people with allergies, one of these is a particularly nasty villain. Let's focus on that highlighted slice right there, ozone. See, ground-level ozone isn't just a passive irritant that's just hanging out in the air. Oh no, it's an active accomplice. It's what we could call a symptom amplifier. It takes a normal allergic reaction and just cranks the volume knob way, way up. On those high ozone days, people with allergies don't just feel bad, they feel awful. And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? On a day with a certain amount of pollen, okay, you might have some moderate symptoms. But now take that exact same amount of pollen and add a high level of ozone into the mix, and boom, the symptom severity just goes through the roof. The ozone is basically supercharging the whole allergic reaction. So how on earth does it do that? Well, this is just wild. One study found that ozone molecules can literally stick to the surface of pollen grains, like they hitch a ride. So when you breathe in pollen on a high ozone day, you're not just getting the allergen, you're getting an allergen coated in a powerful irritant delivered like a special package right to the lining of your airway. Okay, let's step back for a second and put all these pieces of the puzzle together. We've got a single, unified airway. We have an immune system that's a bit of a drama queen, prone to overreacting, and we've got this environmental accomplice that's just making everything worse. What's really amazing is that this whole response isn't just one big event. It's a multi-stage process that plays out over time. So within minutes of breathing in an allergen, that neural reflex can make your airways tighten up. Then, within a few hours, that inflammatory drainage can start to make your lungs more sensitive. And then, get this, 24 to 48 hours later, the systemic domino effect finally kicks in, as that army of new inflammatory cells that was recruited by your nose finally arrives in your lungs, causing a delayed but really powerful reaction. So when you look at that complex timeline, a few key takeaways become crystal clear. First, we have to stop thinking of our nose and lungs as separate things. It's one unified airway, period. Second, a sneeze is never just a sneeze. It can be the starting gun for a body-wide inflammatory cascade that ends up in your lungs. And third, the air we breathe isn't just a neutral backdrop. Pollutants like ozone are active players, making our symptoms way worse. Understanding these connections is absolutely key to managing our respiratory health. And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. We just don't live in a world anymore where we can cleanly separate our own bodies from the environment around us. Our health is a constant dynamic dance between our internal biology and the external world. So the real question is, as our environment keeps changing, how are we going to adapt our understanding of what it even means to be healthy?